So the author of the letter of Hebrews, traditionally understood to be Paul, says that since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, right? He's talking about the communion of saints, and he's talking about the church militant, that we here, surrounded by each other, a great cloud of witnesses, should rid ourselves of every burden of sin that clings to us. And as I was thinking about this is not an exhaustive list. It's not some great patristic list. It's just the way that I kind of understood it. I saw two ways that sin burdens us and clings to us. The one is through character flaws, what we call vices, right? That we are inclined to do this sin. It's the sin that you oftentimes confess repeatedly when you go to confession. Father, it's been 3 weeks and it's pretty much all the same stuff, right? I gossiped, or I wasted time, or whatever it is. It could even be grave things, an alcoholic, or an addict to gambling, or a sex addict of some form. And it's hard to shake off because it's either habitual or it's vicious, and it's rooted in a character flaw, and that becomes terribly burdensome. This idea it can become so discouraging that we can't get over this sin, right? Little or small, doesn't matter. The size of it is not the issue, because they can all feel burdensome, right? They can all feel very weighty. And it can cause us to become discouraged and to think poorly of ourselves in a way that is unbecoming of a Christian, right? The other way, though, is perhaps a little bit more nefarious, and it's more an attack against us of the devil. The devil's more intentionally trying to say, hey, don't look at Jesus, look backwards at your sin. It's this memory of the past sins that we carry. Things that we're ashamed of, things that we've done that we think to ourselves, how could I have ever done that? I never thought I would have done that. And yet we did, we have. And perhaps we did that thing before we knew how bad it was. Some women may get an abortion when they were younger, not really understanding the depth and the gravity of the thing, and maybe they were pressured, they were afraid, and they did it. And then years later, they come to this deeper understanding of the love of Christ, the beauty and the dynamism of the human person, and the weight of that comes crashing down on them, and they're terribly, terribly burdened by that memory. But it's just a memory, and yet it clings to us, right? Let us rid ourselves of every burden and sin that clings to us. And so whether they're present sins that we're actually doing, or whether they are the memory of a sin that just clings to us, it's like, get off, get away, I can't get free of this. We have the remedy that we fix our eyes on Jesus, the leader and perfecter of faith. For the sake of the joy that lay before him, Jesus endured the cross, despising its shame. He just didn't care. He knows that eternal life, and not necessarily for him, but eternal life for us, is on the other side of the suffering and death of that cross. All he's got to do is get through that suffering. He'll rise from the dead, and he'll open the gates of paradise for all the people he came to save. And so he said, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to get it done. It's, in a certain sense, perhaps I have no direct experience of this at all, but I would imagine the sort of the fear, anxiety, and immediacy of pain that a woman goes into when they begin going into labor. They know the beauty and the joy that's on the other side of it, but they have to endure the labor first, right? But from what I'm told, as soon as that passes, almost as soon as that passes, it's forgotten, because you have the fruit of that labor, the fruit of that effort in your hands, the beloved child. And so for us, Jesus did this though he was free of any sin. He didn't do it because he had sin. He did it so that we could do it despite our sin. right? So that we could follow him through the difficulties and the burdens of the tribulations of life, seeing them and accepting them as the cross by which we suffer and are purified, and on the other side rise. So what I think the author of the letter of the Hebrews is trying to do is the same thing I'm trying to do now, which is to say, we have sinned. We may have very recently sinned. We may have sin for which we are yet unrepentant. But don't be discouraged, because Christ has already gone through the cross. He's already gone through death, these things that are the effects of sin, so that he could destroy it and rise again and invite us into eternal life. So no matter how long you've struggled with a sin, no matter how burdensome it feels, no matter what weight of shame or disgust you feel yourself for the memory of a sin, you are free to let these things go. You're free to not sin anymore. You don't have to sin anymore. No matter how habitual, no matter how easy it's become because you've done it so often, you don't have to do it anymore. And no matter what you've done in the past, the Lord's forgiven you. Who you are now is not who you were then. Don't beat yourself up for what some other person in the past has done. Let it go. Why? So that you're free and fast and fit to run to Jesus.